welcome to Album Deep Dive with Jason and friends. And today I have a good friend of mine from New
What's up?
Jersey. Yep, bro. 500 Legion
Yep.
member with me. Got me started. got me started and built my
Yeah, absolutely.
costume.
A long time ago. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
exactly. You cook for how we built though. That's good.
Yeah, good old days. And today we are deep diving the Misfits shelved album, Static Age. And here's some of the album covers. And Bro with Jerry Only.
Yep,
And
there you
I,
go.
I was able to filter myself
Look
into
at that.
some, make myself a misfit punk. I
That's
look like you
awesome.
now. All right. Album again was recorded in 1978, which is crazy. I didn't even realize they were in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah, no, they formed that long ago, yeah.
And New Jersey band. So, when
Yep.
did you when did you get into them? Like early or later in life?
Yeah, no, I got into them around 86 or
Oh,
so.
okay.
86, 87. They were just kind of releasing, Walk Among Us and the collection and, that like they were still relevant,
Uh-huh.
right then. They were really big, especially because they're from New Jersey.
Yeah. North Jersey though, right?
Yeah, Lodi.
Yeah, that's right. That yucky part of New Jersey.
Yeah, they think it's called Taylor Ham because they're all idiots. It's pork roll.
Exactly. Yep. So the album was, hardcore punk, which, is really interesting listening to it because how fast some of the songs were. And I always kind of thought like Slayer and Metallica brought that fastness in. I didn't realize that bands
Yeah.
like the Misfits were doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, they were definitely one of the first bands, in that punk hardcore era. To play
Yeah.
at that speed and that aggressive, tone.
Uh-huh. Horror punk, they're kind of known as. I think it's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and they kept that image going. What is it? I guess it's like what 40 years of the the horror punk. I mean, that's pretty cool to keep. Like how bands try to reinvent themselves
Yeah. Yeah.
and didn't have to. That's so cool.
No. No, they've never changed. They're still to this day. They've reunited and they still got the same look, the devil locks, the black eyes, the spikes, the
Hmm.
giant, guitars and bass. It's nothing's changed. It's all
That's cool. I like that. When you can make it for a long period of time. So this was recorded January through February 1978 in New York City, and it was officially released in 1996, which is just crazy. At the time, the band was Glenn Danzig, Franchi Coma. Am I saying that right?
yep, yep.
Okay, Jerry Only, and Mr. Jim.
Exactly.
I like that. Um, have you ever? You've met Jerry? Is Jerry the only guy you've ever met?
No, we actually just met Doily a couple weeks ago. He was at the Trenton Punk Rock Festival, and yeah, I met Jerry Only, and I met Bobby Steele, who was in one of the later incarnations of the Misfits. Um,
Mm.
it was so long ago. It was got to be in the late '80s, early '90s. I was at, I think, some other show, either at like the Birch Hill or up in New York City,
Uh-huh.
and he was like an opening band when he was with the Undead. And afterwards, he had like a little table in the back, so I was talking to him. But back in those days, we didn't have internet and Google and stuff like that, so you really didn't. It's not like it was in your face and you could do research and know who it was. It's just like, oh, Bobby Steele, right? And he's like, yeah, I was in the Misfits. I'm like, oh, okay. The only information you ever got was on the album, on the cassette covers is
Mm-hmm.
where you got all that stuff.
Yep.
I always tell the story. I told Doily when I saw him. is, again, in like maybe 89, 90, we were skateboarding just in one of the lots, near our house, and two dudes roll up in this van. And it was all about not van, and taking candy from strangers and all that. I was like, 18, 19, and they got out and they're like, hey, they're like, and you guys like the Misfits? And I'm like, hell's yeah, I love the Misfits. And they're like, well, Doyley's starting a new band called Christ the Conqueror. If you give us your address, we'll send you some cool stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I gave him a home address, didn't even think twice about it, and all my friends are like, dude, you're nuts. And I'm like, well, what are they gonna do? I'm like, just whatever. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, I actually brought it out because I still have it. I got a Doyley fan club,
Oh
and it
wow.
was yeah, I still have this. It came, I laminated, but the Doyley fan club, it was
Holy
autographed.
shit.
It came with posters. It came with an actual cassette tape from Christ the Conqueror. That was
Uh-huh.
like after Miss and Sam Hain, and then Danzig went on his own. Like right in that time frame, him and Jerry Only started Christ the Conqueror,
Mm.
and it was
Yeah.
it was and but I had all this memorabilia, and I was getting free stuff from it. They sending me stuff. It was like the Fiend
That
Club, but it
is
was his version because it was Doyley. And I was
wow.
like, yep, won that one.
Yeah, yeah. Your friends must have been so jealous.
So didn't get,
Oh yeah.
yeah. I'm like, see, we didn't get kidnapped, and I got some cool shit. So
And you still have it. That's even awesome. But I kind of know how
but
you
also
are.
yeah, we talk, yeah, oh yeah, keep everything. But like you're talking about me, and I'm like, it could have been Doyley in the van. They didn't. They might have said their names. I don't really remember because again, we were just skateboarding. We were teenagers, and
Mhm.
you don't know what they really look like outside their makeup if they don't have the double lock and stuff. And these are just like two kind of like punk dudes, with regular clothes on and hats and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
they might have said who they were, but I don't think it was Doyley. But it might have been some of the other members of the band, or maybe their manager or something. But they were like, for whatever reason, they were in in our area, and
Yeah,
I was like, they were legit. So
that's so cool. So, I think I saw on this was very interesting was that Glenn owned the rights to the name Blank Records, and Mercury Records
yeah,
accidentally used it at the same time. And their sentiment was he didn't want money, he wanted studio time.
right. So they accidentally used that, and the settlement was, we'll just take 30 hours of studio time. So they took
Nice.
that time, and that's where they recorded the 17 songs for Static Age.
Hmm. Was the
And
original was
then
17? I'm seven, I'm sorry.
yeah, there were 17 songs.
So I'm seven. Okay.
17.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was like a deluxe because I have 17 songs and I wasn't sure if that was a deluxe or if the original was maybe 10, whatever.
No, they recorded all 17 songs, and that was meant to be the Static Age album. And then
Hmm.
they out of those 17 songs, they got 14 that they were going to put into for Static Age as a release.
Yeah.
But they couldn't find anybody that was willing to release it, so they ended up just taking, I think it was 4 songs, and made the Bullet single. So that's what they ended up releasing, and that's kind of was like their first release, which
Hmm.
then kind of kicked them off.
Do you remember what songs were on that one?
Bullet, We Are 138, Attitude, and Hollywood Babylon. So
Oh,
that
okay.
was the Bullets. So that, and those were some of the original songs in the Static Age recordings.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, that
Some
was
of their
like I
best
said.
songs.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't, listening to it, it was amazing. Uh, like really hearing like Glenn so young, but he still had that talent there, that because I heard a lot of
Yeah,
like, I know his Danzig stuff a lot better than I know the Misfit stuff, but I
yeah,
really just heard it and I saw because I also saw that when they broke up, what's his name? Rick Rubin had heard some of the Misfits, and from hearing the Misfits, he saw a lot of potential in Glenn, and brought him over to him, where they started off the Danzig project, which was phenomenal. I mean, he's just had a great run,
Yes.
great run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, absolutely.
said recorded live in the studio, minimum overdubs, raw production style. I would hope so for a punk album.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Pretty much unknown producers, no official budget, but we all kind of know what happened. So, free recording. They must have been so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. It was definitely a win for him.
What do you know about the album being shelved and getting released?
So it was, after they won the studio time and they recorded the 17 songs, they condensed it to 14 for the Static Age album that they wanted to release. But then they
Mhm.
couldn't find anybody to release it or anyone that was willing to release it. So ultimately, Danzig created his own record label, a new record label this time, Plan 9 Records. Again, the horror, B movie horror aspect. And he released 4 of the songs as a single. So it was Bullet, Hollywood Babylon, We Are 138, and Attitude, I think it was the single. So
Mhm.
that was released, and then that was like really well received, and that kind of like got them started.
Nice. How much longer did they last from 78? The original band? Not long, right?
I mean, it was after the Bullet release, and they went on tour in Canada. I don't know the exact dates because again, we were teenagers back then. There was no internet or just out by finding things out. But they went on tour in Canada and disbanded because Franchi Coma and Mr. Jim both left the band. And
Mhm.
then that's a whole other thing where the lineups continued to change. They had more people coming in and out. But ultimately, in the different lineups, they lasted till I want to say it's got to be like 80, 88 or 89 maybe, because that's about when Danzig came out.
Mhm.
It might have been a little earlier. Might have been a little earlier because in between Misfits and Danzig was Sam Hain. That was a couple years too, which was a couple of the members kept going from there.
Yeah. Yeah, they really have had a massive turnover in the years.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, of course, there's the controversy they had over Bullet, which kind of talked about the JFK assassination in the lyrics. Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so catchy, but all their songs were kind of based around horror film and yeah, real world topics and some very controversial stuff. But that's the band. That's what they were. That's punk rock.
yes. Yeah, that's real punk rock. That's not like Green Day punk rock.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. And then Misfits for you, exactly when did they come into your life and how did they come into your life?
I was a teenager in the '80s, and
Mhm.
I really got into like hardcore and punk and heavy metal. And back then it was very clear cut. Like there was pop, there was metal, there was like classic rock or whatever, like rock and roll. Like
Yeah.
nowadays you're hearing everything on the radio, but back then is you kind of chose your group and what you liked, and then you were a burnout, a jock, or a prep. I mean, that was basically you were one category and you didn't stray from it. You didn't associate with it. Yeah, every group did not get along, and you were that was your people, which I
Yes. And
I
that's
actually enjoyed that era. Like we weren't like killing each other fighting era, but it was just like
mhm.
it was clear cut. And so I was a skateboarder, surf punk, right here on the Jersey Shore. So like my whole life was surfing, skateboarding, BMX riding, freestyling, and that's in that genre. That's where you find the punk rock and the metal. So that's kind of what you
Yes.
get into. If I was in sports, I'd probably be listening to classic rock or just pop or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it was probably around 85 or 86 is when I really started getting into them. Discovered you know uh, Minor Threat, the Sex Pistols, Misfits. Like I would go to the record store in the malls. We had Cedar Square Mall. They would
Mm-hmm.
have record stores in the malls back then, and I would just go from A all the way to Z and just look at all the cassette tapes because it was also cassette tapes back then. And I would
Yes.
just look for an interesting name and then look at the cover and see what they look like, and then I was like, you take a chance on them because
Mm-hmm.
they weren't on the radio and there was no internet back then, so you couldn't try them out. There was no Spotify or iTunes or anything. Like you had to just kind of look and see. We had a Collingswood auction and some flea market places that would sell old heavy metal magazines. So you'd also
Mm-hmm.
pick them up. You wouldn't get the current one. You'd go and get for a nickel you'd get like the old ones, and then you could
Yeah.
thumb through and find some bands. And then you would just keep an eye out for flyers, for different hardcore shows or metal shows, and then some of the opening bands. So it was a way to discover music. You had to like actually just be out there experiencing it and finding it and taking a chance on it. It definitely was a band that I really got into right off the bat. I was like, these guys are the shit. They're cool. I'm like, I like them, the look, the sound. You know, I loved back then the songs were just so short, so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Two verses maybe and the chorus repeat a couple times, 2 minute songs. It's like, it was easy to learn. It was easy to, scream and shout, along with.
Yeah.
It was a good era. I love the 80s. I mean, there's nothing like the 80s. That was the teenager in the 80s is unforgettable.
Yeah. For me, it's crazy. It was the Metallica EP. It was a Garage Stage Revisit, the first one that Jason Newsted played on when they
Yep,
covered
yep.
Last Caress and Green Hell. That's what introduced me to the Misfits.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, that's good. And that's funny because it was a heavier version and nobody
uh
heard the original version the way it was meant to be until it was finally released, which I guess we'll talk about in a bit.
yes, very soon. um, yeah,
Yeah.
actually, let's do that. Let's get right down here and get down to the first track, which is Static Age. And
Yes.
let's take I know you're new as new co-host, so we do 7 seconds because I have to worry about copyright.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
here's 7 seconds of Static Age. Uh I love the beginning of that. It just that it's almost got like that Batman 60s theme that
Yeah,
done
yeah, yeah.
and let's see this song theme from Alienation Decay. Yeah, I mean, I don't really
Yeah.
know much of Static Age.
So, I mean, all the songs, a lot of people love to just interpret the songs, and, everyone kind of takes our best guess as to what they were because, I don't think anyone's really ever sat down. I'm sure at some point there's been
Uh-huh.
interviews or articles, but, they're hard to find like direct quotes from, members of the band talking about the inspiration for each song. But
Yeah.
again, that was also an era where it was pretty straightforward and like you read the lyrics and you figure out that's exactly what they're talking about. All those songs also were like had that horror film B movie type, like feel to it and influence in it.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, age you just figure, and most people feel that it's like you're stuck in society, you're brainwashed, and you're just it's pretty straightforward. But it's
Yep.
definitely one of those first songs where it's like it's so good.
Yep. Here's another 7 seconds.
I can't really hear too much of that, but I mean, I know the songs, so.
Are you not hearing it? Um,
Nah,
yeah, that's what happens sometimes. It's really weird.
yeah, that's
Uh,
okay.
yeah. So I mean, it's just really, really good. I mean, it's punk, but it's got a lot of it's like it's not pop at all, but it has that pop feeling in a way.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think a lot of that is because of Glenn's vocal range. Like he's not your typical like, oh, I should grow up on, Agnostic Front and Uniform Choice and Minor Threat, where that hardcore is like just guttural screaming, and
mhm.
then punk rock is about the same thing, but just a little more, musically a little different. He kind of
Yeah,
has that scream, but you can also tell that he's singing. Like there's like range in there, and it's, I think that's why it's such a good mix, because he's not purposely like, here's a scream and now here's a melody. It's like, here's a scream, but it's a melodic scream, if that's a term we could come up with.
yeah. No, you're right. There's a lot of melodic to it, even though it's punk. Um, I'm gonna give
Right.
it 7 more seconds. I always do three of because once we talk for a little bit, I can play it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I really dig this song.
It
Yeah.
was, we're going back to when, the fact that the 17 songs, that like, it was, the album was made and then it wasn't released until the box set in 96, which
Uh-huh.
I'll tell that story later. um but that's, yeah, hearing like some of the songs, a lot of the songs did make their way to other albums and other singles, but like some of these you didn't hear until 1996 when the box set came out, and it's like, wow, that's like, man, that's such a great song.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move on to track number two, TV Casualty, which I think I love the title. All right. Let's hear a little bit of this one.
Yeah, again, it's almost like, it's funny because the first two songs are very similar, I think, in the theme, in my opinion. It's,
Uh-huh.
that's another one where it's, just the generation of just, it's actually, they're almost like they're future tellers, because today's generation, I think, is more, just addicted to TV and screen time, and just that's their life.
Uh-huh.
Back then it wasn't so much, because we had 13 channels and black and white TVs, and it's crazy, because you didn't have stuff you could just click and watch. You had to wait for whatever time slot it was and watch a show once a week.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like you said, if there wasn't, if we weren't outside playing, if it was darker, sometimes, yeah, you were just stuck watching TV, when there was downtime or you didn't have anything to do. And yeah, that's it. I think it's similar to Static Age. I think those first two songs are very, the same type of theme.
Yeah, we were kind of the last generation to go out.
Yeah. Oh
To
yeah,
be
100%.
outside. All right, here's a little bit more of TV Casualty. I like that. I have this TV Casualty, that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And of course, I have a little bit of the end, which I love because it's the you hear the "I Love Lucy" theme.
Yep.
So here's the end of it, which for the listeners to hear. I gotta stop it. We gotta talk, and I gotta put it back on.
Yeah, you think it's funny because you look at it's almost like, did they get their influence, for that song from this one, or did they just have the similar mindset because they're all, punk rock in that era?
Absolutely. And then we have Some Kind of Hate, which perfect punk title. Yeah, this is another killer. I love it. In order to, I love the complexity of some of these lyrics. Now, here was the thing about the '80s: when you had long hair and you wore leather jackets, you were labeled stupid and dumb. And
Right.
if you listen to half of the hardcore albums lyrics, those people were smart as shit, and were hitting, like, they
Yeah.
were giving credit to the people talking about drinking and hanging out with girls. They're writing about the world, and they're being labeled dumb.
Yeah, I had long hair and a leather jacket and Iron Maiden T-shirts, but I was in all honors classes because I was smart, and it was funny because people like, it's the same people that I had from elementary school, followed me, so they knew who I was. It's just I changed my look, but I was always the same person. So like I had got along with all the props and preps and the jocks in class, but afterwards we would just wave goodbye and go our separate ways, and it definitely, yeah, definitely, you were looked at as like a burnout and just a waste of society, a dirt bag or whatever, and wasn't
Yeah,
really the case, but yeah, it is what it is.
yeah. All right, here's Some Kind of Hate. I really like the beginning, that dun 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, you know, just makes me think that, because Glenn was, the creative force behind it. He definitely had a love of some, late '50s rock, early '60s.
Yeah. Yeah, no, him and Jerry Only definitely are influenced by like those, 40s and 50s, movies and all that era.
Mhm.
A lot of the songs, especially on this album, between like, Brain Rot and Society, with some of the other songs, everything, also a lot of the songs revolve around like love and
Mhm.
hate, and so who knows, maybe Danzig didn't have a great you know relationships in his life. I don't know. I don't. That's
Yeah,
a far stretch, I guess, but it's a lot of, because this one seems like it's like a love hate dichotomy of, some kind of love, some kind of hate, and again, you really have to use your imagination, because like we talked about before, the songs are like four lines a chorus, maybe two lines another chorus, and that's it. So you don't have a lot of
yes,
material to like really deep dive into and say, hey, this is definitely what it's about. It's like, but it's also so simple. It's like, it seems like it's just, like a love story. Like a lot of them are about love, but then I don't think he's like like a crazy sadomastic, like sexual person in that way. I think that's all the
mm,
horror film is. That's the, like, it's
yeah,
all told in like a horror film way. So it's,
yeah,
because again, it's punk rock and he wants to be shocking and wants to be controversial. So he's just taking like, hey, there's, I got a love hate relationship, and I'm gonna, throw a little bit of, controversy in the lyrics just so people talk about it, which is
yeah.
smart, but it's so catchy.
Yeah, and you got to be creative.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
everything, not everything has to be real. Here's a
Yeah.
little
No.
bit more
Exactly.
of it. That, him going whoa, whoa, whoa. I love his
Yeah.
voice, really do.
Yeah. No, he's got a great voice.
Yeah, he's I like, so I hear a lot of Jim Morrison in him. I always felt that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Definitely. I think there's some influence there.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, let's wrap it up with this song. A couple more seconds. There was a little kind of you don't do much guitar soloing. They do kind of like just their solos kind of have more rhythm to it, and I love
Yeah,
that. You know.
yeah, it yeah, all that era. The Ramones, I think that's also like an influence one way or another. Because
Mhm.
they're all around about the same time with
Yeah,
with the oh and the melodic hooks that they make, and it
great song, but the lyrics are definitely, this is where as a kid you love it, but then as a parent, I would imagine you don't really want your like kids
yeah,
listening to it.
yeah. Now
And
that's all my my middle daughter is really into the Misfits and the punk rock and the hardcore, and at the same time, as an early teenager, it's sometimes I'm like, I mean these lyrics are a little, little shocking, and that's great, but she's it's not going to influence her in a bad way because she has us as parents and we all know better. But I could definitely see how parents of the day, like my parents especially, they were very Christian and went to church and
mhm.
didn't swear, didn't have MTV or R-rated movies or anything like that. And sometimes they'd hear this stuff and they'd be like, "Bro, what are you listening to? That's awful. I don't want you to listen to that." And I'm like, "It's just it's just music. It's you gotta like really listen to some of the lyrics." And but yeah, like I get away with it for like Minor Threat or something because they had some positive messages, because they're straight edge
Oh,
and even though they're hardcore. But yeah, it's hard to say listen to the lyrics of the Misfits and they're not that bad because they really lyrics stand alone are pretty bad.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I got something to say. I killed a baby today. I mean, uh,
Yeah,
whew.
I mean, I think it's all just shock and awe. It's another one
Yeah.
of those ones where he just is just it's just a horror movie, idea that just comes out and he just makes it rhyme and in a catchy way using lyrics that are going to drive people crazy, and he
Mhm.
succeeded. Like we talked about before, Metallica covered it and everyone,
Yes.
thought it was really
Listen it.
great.
I got something to say. And I killed a baby today. And it doesn't matter much to me as
That brilliant punk, but kind of popish, but crazy lyrics. It just works so well.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I really I love Metallica's version, but I also like this version a lot because it's just like you said, it's the natural, true version.
Yeah, I mean, I love Danzig's voice, so I love their version because it's just the way he sings, and just the way it echoes out and is in your face. But I do appreciate Metallica's version that it's a little more metal and faster. I think that sounds really good too. It's a good song.
Oh,
Either one is playing, it's a good.
absolutely. And Metallica carried it on where Danzig really wasn't touching much of that, especially when he got into the Danzig stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a little bit more.
but I got something to say. I'll make your mother today. And it doesn't matter much to me as long as she's swear. Sweet lovely day.
When they ultimately broke up and Danzig, created Samhain, and that took even a darker, more quote satanic type, turn, deeper into the
Uh,
horror, Satan type genre, and then even Danzig is pretty dark. Jerry
mhm,
Only, when him and Doyley made Christ the Conqueror, he actually said that it was kind of like a Christian band because they wanted to steer away from the demons and the devil and the negative stuff in songs like this and try to be
mhm,
more positive. And
mhm.
I'm sure that I'm probably one of only a handful of people that even know, remember, or listen to that band. But I mean, if you ever look it up, it's Christ with a K,
Mhm.
Kryst, the Conqueror. That's I'm sure you could probably find it on nowadays. You probably find it on iTunes or Spotify, but it's
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. It was definitely a cool project, and having that is a cool thing. But it's exact opposite of what you're hearing, with songs like this.
Oh yeah. The Return of the Fly, which was inspired by Vincent Price reference.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this. There's no disputing what this is. This is just literally a song about a movie that they liked. Return of the Fly is about Return of the Fly, the Vincent Price movie. You know, the
Hmm.
lyrics are right there. It's pretty straightforward. It's just put into a catchy tune.
Yep, and here's a little bit of it.
Return of fire, return of fire, with Vincent Price, yeah, return of the fire. No
The music to it is just it's so cool. I don't even know how to explain it. It just got such a good like rhythm
On this
to it.
album, this is their first. This is their first. Would have been their first album. So this is how they
Uh-huh.
started. This is what they sounded like when they started. And they never really changed. But like this is why it's my favorite. I think it's the best Misfits album because it's got so much in it. The
Uh-huh.
other ones that came out afterwards are great. A lot of them have songs from this album and new songs, but like every single song on this is just got that initial hard in your face, but also melodic, catchy, aspect to it. And
Yeah.
it's funny because yeah, again, back then you get the cassette tapes. They didn't necessarily have lyrics in them. They just would have a couple pictures and a listing of the songs, and there was no way to figure out what they were saying. And you just had to listen to it over and over and try to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I mean, you kind of knew that it was about the movie, but I didn't know the actors' names. There's no way because again, unless you're watching the movie and seeing it scroll in the credits, there's no way to even know who's in it. It's so like half these words you don't even know what they're saying. It's like you didn't realize till later on when you can find the lyrics that they're like
Uh-huh.
listing the actors and actresses' names in there. I'm just like I don't know what he's saying. Just you make up words in your head and just you kind of mutter through the parts you don't know and then just sing the hook real loud.
Yeah, because it's funny when you think about all the like you think you know a song and then 5 years later someone gives you the lyrics and you're like, oh, I've been singing that wrong for
Yeah,
the last 5 years.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I still do that. It's forever.
Here's a little more Return of the Fly.
hands and knees, yeah, you get it paid. Oh, ain't alone, oh, ain't alone, thanks,
It's crazy right, as you listen to this because I'm just like, what a shame. Because when it came out, it didn't get the credit that it deserved because time had moved on. Another great one.
Hybrid moments.
Yeah.
This might be my all time favorite. And when this comes on, I get that like my body just has a reaction to it where I want to just start moshing and just moving. Like it gives me like tingles. It's like we're
Oh.
so you hear bands like my daughter was Alexis was playing one of her shows in an all girl punk rock band, and one of the other bands that were opening for him because they usually headline like
Uh-huh.
did a cover of this, and I was just like I jumped up. I was like I just wanted to just go in there, but I mean we're like Asbury Beer Works and it's a bunch of teenagers and I can't go in there like old school mosh. Used to mosh with skinheads up in New York City. I don't want to. I can't. It's you got to like tame it down.
Oh man. All right, let's listen to a little bit of this. What's it, Hybrid Man? And it's number 6.
Yeah.
Here we go.
if you're gonna scream, scream with me. Moments like this never learn. When you
I really like the drum, the little bit of the drum intro.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. The second that drum intro hits, I'm like, I know what that is, and just the body has a reaction, man. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got good rhythm. I'm digging this one. So let's listen to a little bit more.
Oh, baby, when you cry, your face is momentary. You hide your looks behind disguise.
Yeah, I like that, ooh baby when you cry. Like you just like you said,
Yeah,
you don't expect the Misfits to sing something like that, but they do.
yeah, yeah. And again, it's one of those songs that it's like, what is it about heartbreak or romance or masking your feelings.
Yeah, it's a good one. No, I mean, this is oh, here we go. 130. We are 138.
We
Um,
are 138.
have no idea what it means, but I absolutely love this song.
It's just so simple. It's so fun. Again, it's one of those songs where it is like, a handful of words that are just repeated over and over, but it's really catchy.
Hmm.
There's some, and again, we're Star Wars nerds.
Hmm.
There's belief that it's a reference to George Lucas TXH or THX 1138. His first,
Oh.
his college movie that George Lucas did.
Hmm.
That's because again, it's in that era, and they were into the sci-fi and the horror film. Because again, horror film was a big influence, but also sci-fi was also heavily influenced in their lyrics and their music. So
Hmm.
I could see that if you look into it because they're talking about like androids and stuff like that, and that fits the TXH 1138 movie. Um,
When I do these episodes, sometimes I have to really study an album, and this was an album I had to study. So I pretty much for like a week or so I locked myself like just listening to it over and over and over. And I had
yeah,
my friends' kids with me a lot this last week, and they're 5 years old and 3 years old, and I'm listening in the car with them yesterday, and I'm playing 138, and I hear them in the background going, "We're 130, 138." I'm like, "Oh my god, they're
yeah,
picking it up."
yeah,
I was loving it.
yeah. It's Yeah, we have it's one of the a nearby highway is Route 138 near our
Yes.
house. So in the mid 90s, we used to have Halloween parties and drink and hang out and all that, but we'd always dress up. And I dressed up as Doily. I made a guitar out of wood. I just that he had and a regular string going through, and made like a fake devil lock and white face. I had just one of my old Misfits shirts and some leather pants and boots, and then I went to where the sign was in the middle of the night and took a picture. I have it somewhere. I have to pull it up, but yeah, it's a picture of me, with my hands up, like yeah, we're on 138 because it's Route
Yeah.
138.
You got it. If you can get that before I air this, we'll put it in the show.
Yeah, I know. I have it. I can find it. It's pretty easy. It's a picture, but I scanned the picture years ago because I thought it was great.
Nice. All right, so here's 138.
We are 138. We are 138. We are 138.
I mean, the intro, and then just that bum 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 bum. Like, yes, we're gonna hop over to the Teenagers from Mars.
Yep, another great song.
This one's B movie horror atmosphere, early horror punk blueprint. Okay, let's
Yeah,
see.
this again, it's like we're talking about the sci-fi influence too. It's I think it's just about teenage rebellion, punk rock. That's what it's all about, and just got that B movie, sci-fi horror type, genre built into it.
Yeah, here's a little bit of Teenage from Mars.
We land in barren fields on the Arizona.
I really dig Jerry's bass line in this song. Just popping bass. And I love bass. I don't. I wish it was more, sometimes more predominant in the song. It's usually buried between the drums and guitars, but bass can be really good. All right, let's do a little more.
Yeah,
We all the angel music. The streets for us to jump to.
It's crazy. He just for a punk person, Danzig knows how to write a chorus. Like I love that drum beginning with that dun 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 dun. Just
Yep, yep.
not the the greatest musicianship, but I mean still good. You know,
Yeah, that's
long.
again. I think that's another one. Talking about like, um, losing a love and trying to get it back, but told in like a horror film aspect. With like instead of just I lost the love and I wish I had her back, it's like she's dead in the corner and come back to me in the afterlife or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Um, they talk because one of the lines in there they're talking about the ravens and ravens at least in Native American culture, like crows would like carry the souls, when they die. So that's I think it's cool. I like the way he makes these songs. In his head he's thinking like, let's make like a love song about losing, breaking up or the girl the one that got away, and then like, but then let's make it into a twisty horror, shocking, uh, song that's gonna piss everyone off.
Yep. And you just think about it. He wrote these back in 70, probably 77, 78, and look at it, and then look at the 90s, his writing was still as good, like he's a good writer,
Oh,
and I don't didn't get the credit,
yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
Here's a little bit more of it. Mm. I tell you, this is where I can hear that the Danzig, part, like
Yeah.
what he became later,
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Great song. Of course, you have to have a song called like Angel Fuck.
Yeah. Again, let's circle back to my teenage daughter that loves the band, and this is one of the songs. It's like, is what it is. She can turn up, to just get through it. But I could just it puts me in. I'm arguing with my parents like, that's harmless, and they're like, bro, like like he's getting serious, and like, yeah, okay,
It's just like you said. For me, I had my parents sometimes worried about the stuff I listened to, but they knew that I was the type of person to make my own decisions in the sense that I didn't let other people influence me. So
yeah,
I could listen to stuff like this and shit that was bad, but not go out and destroy things and stuff.
yeah, no, exactly, yeah, the same way. They had trust in me and they raised me right, so it wasn't a problem.
Yeah. And then of course we had fear back then of our parents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's because there was consequences when you did something wrong,
Yes.
and it wasn't you weren't given an excuse and told, oh, it's okay. I understand you did this because whatever. It's like no. It's like what
Yeah.
the hell you doing? Whack. You know, this gets taken away. Go in your room, and that was it.
Uh-huh.
And you stare at a wall. Unplug and take your TV out, and you didn't have anything.
Yep.
You just sit, yeah.
Yep. Well, I had a friend growing up where her mother loved to take her cassettes when she did something wrong. Went in the bedroom and took them all out. And to me, that would have
Oh,
been the worst punishment.
yeah, no, that happened to me. I so again, like I got caught, as a teenager drinking some beer with my friends, and in the field or whatever, and cops
Hmm.
came, and they just brought us to the station and just let us release it to our parents, because we were teenagers drinking beer. We weren't, which I'm not encouraging, please, but we weren't committing criminal acts or vandalizing or breaking things. We were just
Yeah.
listening to music and drinking beer. And yeah, the second we got home, they just took my entire box of cassette tapes because that, the, what is it, the PMRC or whatever, it says
Uh-huh.
that, says that music makes a good person turn bad. And they took all my music, and then I wouldn't have anything to listen to, and it sucked. And, I'd apologize and explain to them. But then I'd like pull out like the Minor Threat CD, and I'm like, this one did have lyrics. Look at the lyrics. And, the lyrics were like, don't drink, don't smoke, like straight edge stuff. And I'm like, see, I'm like, you just don't understand it. But I wouldn't give them like the Slayer or the Misfits one. I don't want to prove them right. I had to manipulate them a little bit. And,
Yes.
my,
I don't blame you.
they'd always come around, and we'd get through it.
All right, here's a little angel fuck.
It's a good song.
Little angel fuck, it's a shame you love. Little angel.
Yeah, I mean, again, the way he presents it and sings it, like it's kind of like nice.
Yeah, yeah. The tune is really good. The music's really good. The way his lyrics and the way it's up and down is really good. And I mean, realistically, I think it's just about prostitution and pimps and stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
again, just told in a shocking way. But again, a lot of this stuff was made to shock and awe and create some controversy and make it, because again, if it's forbidden, then it makes it more appealing to teenage rebellion and the
Mhm.
long haired punks and dirtbags. It's like everyone hates this because it's bad. What is it? We got to go get it and listen to it. It's like
Yes.
back then, and it worked. That's how you sell, that's how you advertise, because you didn't have Instagram and influencers and ambassadors and all this way to reach people. It's like you just had to be like, oh dude, you hear that one song? And no, I can't hear that. It's like it made you want to listen to it more.
Yeah, you know, I was not a fan of rap at all, but man, Two Live Crew came out, I had to buy it,
Exactly.
because of the controversy. All right, here's a little bit more of
I
this.
see you going down on a fire floor. A little angel fuck.
All right. let's let's move on to the next. Hollywood Babylon.
Yes.
I like this. This is another good one. This one we'll just jump right into it and get a little taste of it before we talk.
Who came along for the ride?
Again, that heavy bass, that dun 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 dun. Dun.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
love.
it's like, yeah, it's like punk rock, but slowed down, but still heavy, and still goes fast and down. Like it's all over the place. Like it's really good.
Yeah, and I can only imagine 78, like, especially New Jersey, 78. What's everybody, Bruce Springsteen, Bruce Springsteen, Bruce
Yeah. Oh my
Springsteen,
god. Yeah.
but then you had, the Misfits around town. I mean, that's just, wow. It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. This, from what I understand on this one, it's I guess there was a book or something
Mhm.
about like a critique of the Hollywood culture. I
Yep.
think it might have actually been called Hollywood Babylon. So the lyrics are pretty, like, who came along for the ride? You can't come inside. It's like you can't come into this, exclusive club. I
Mhm.
never read the book and I don't know much about the book, but from what I understand, it was kind of like that's kind of the influence behind this one.
Yeah, which is, still Hollywood.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right, here's a little bit more.
This heaven coming on its end. Hollywood.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Um,
good song.
it's just some, and here's another good one.
I love it. This is so great.
What's he got? He's got a pentagram either drawn or carved on his in this picture. That I love. He's so crazy. I love him.
Yeah, just drawn on, but yeah, that's again, shock and awe. This, I mean, this is just straightforward. Like, this is punk rock. This is what we're about. We're a
Mhm.
band. We're in your face. F off. Pretty straightforward, but it's a great song. It's a good anthem for like the rebellious youth, to
Mhm.
grasp onto. This is a song you want on your tape player when you're walking onto the beach. It's like, people looking at you. It's like, yeah, what are you looking at? You want some? Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Here's some attitude.
Attitude. You got some fucking attitude. I can't believe what you said to me.
I love that. You got some fucking attitude.
Yeah. And again, it's like starts off heavy, like total punk, then slows down a little bit, inside your feeble brain, and then it's like, ooh, baby, like then it slows down even more. Then it jumps right back up. You
Yeah.
know, his way
And
of writing is so cool.
And most people, if you didn't grow up in that era or you weren't part of it, you don't understand that. Yeah, you dress different, you looked so different from the average people, but you kept to yourself and you got attitudes from people all the time. You did nothing,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
you know. I remember that in school. Kids always had something to say to me, and I was quiet as could be.
Yeah,
I didn't
yes.
want to say anything. All right, here's a little more attitude.
You get some attitude. Inside your feet or brain, there's probably a hole.
All right. Yeah, there's another good one. And then right into a nice controversy song about
Yes.
John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
Again, that one, there's no doubt what it's about. It's straightforward. It's right in the lyrics, and it's just kind of told in a controversial way, and throws a little shade on Jackie O.
There we are.
President for everybody in the street. Right down and right. Kennedy's shadow, dead in some creek.
I love it because this is your standard 70s, early 80s punk. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is just straightforward, pure punk rock.
Yeah, totally awesome. Here's a little bit more.
Down and right. Down about the bottom and down about the scale. From Jackie Rose. Texas is an
I actually went. I was in Dallas and drove down that street where he was shot. It was kind of interesting to see where it was.
Yeah, yeah. I've never been there, but maybe one day I'll make it out there.
Yeah, I just it's funny. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who's 75, and he'll talk about John F. Kennedy, but like he doesn't sometimes comprehend that at somebody who's only 50, really, I don't know anything about. I wasn't there. It means
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's
I'm
not
like,
as impactful for us. Yeah,
yeah, but it was such an impactful thing for them.
yeah. That-
But let's see, theme for a jackal, which is one of your got how to be horror stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's again with the track right before it was about JFK. Again, I don't know history as well as I probably should, but
Uh-huh.
Ted Kennedy uh, had that drunk driving accident where he killed someone, and there's been some theory that this is about that one.
Mm,
If you dissect the lyrics and then look at like the story, it could fit,
uh-huh.
and then you consider like, well, he's writing about one Kennedy and he's punk rock, and there's another Kennedy, like, that's those are material at a time is, all about like further in the 80s was all about, Ronald Reagan and, the Cold War and the Russians and stuff. So like
Yes.
that for his era in the 70s when he's writing all this stuff, that could have been. But again, I don't know if the Ted Kennedy, I probably should have looked it up before. I don't know if the Ted Kennedy incident happened prior to this song being written. If it did, then it very well could be. If it was written afterwards, then people are just making it fit. But
Yeah,
it's interesting to look into. It's something to follow up on.
definitely. All right, here's a little bit of the theme of a jack for a jackal.
drive drunk on the corner.
That was this was the one song that in the album, like I'm not going to say it doesn't fit, but it's so different from the rest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I had to take my least favorite song out of the album just to pick one, this would
Mhm.
be towards the bottom. And again, it's got that experimental kind of. It's almost a little less punk rock and more just like experimental and with the echoey tones and stuff. But
Mhm.
still interesting. It's still
Yeah.
listening. I like it.
Here's a little bit more of it.
All stars are in play. All kings are display.
Yeah, that's a good one. Here's another good one. She,
Yeah.
This one's inspired by Patty Hearst, which I just watched that movie they did of her years ago. It's such a good movie.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen the movie, but yeah, this is definitely about Patty Hearst, and yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I got this. When I first was listening to it, when I saw She, I was like, didn't he do a She in Danzig? But it was She Rides,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
which was a great song. All right, here's some She.
She walked out with empty arms, machine gun in her hand. She is good and she is.
I love it. This one is a really good one.
Yeah. No, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Uh, she got a machine gun in her hand. She is good and she is bad. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's yeah, in the movie, like I said, I think it was on Tubi. It's free to watch. Like, check it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I have to check it out.
Pretty good. Let's see here. A little more She.
She's got a rich daddy. She's her daddy's girl. She loves steak and sand.
We're gonna hop over to Spinal Remains. Which this one? Raw Hardcore Energy. Doesn't really give you much information about this song.
Yeah, again, it's one of those ones you got to just kind of interpret yourself.
Mhm.
If you think about a lot of the lyrics, seem to center around love and sex, and with a horror film aspect to it. It could fall in that category. A little bit of rough sex, but like told in like again in like the horror film with ripping out spines and kind of other stuff. Just, you know,
Have you seen Weapons?
nah.
Oh my god, I watched it last night, and it's I didn't realize it was a horror flick, but at the end, because you said something about ripping out spines and stuff, the end is so gross. You gotta watch it. Good movie. All right, here, let's listen. Let's give it some listen to this one.
This isn't really sex, this isn't really life. This isn't really anything I think I like, and I will not say it on baby glass.
Yeah, I mean, it's punk.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Some of those songs too, like like we talked about, the Static Age album was created but wasn't released till the '90s. Certain songs were released, at different stages. So those songs that are on there fall to the top of my list in liking because I've already heard them so long from other albums that when this comes out, it's like, oh, I already know that song. I love that song.
Mhm.
Some of these songs that weren't released or weren't as listened to as much. That's kind of why they fall to the bottom in my personal list, but doesn't
Mhm.
mean they're any less cool. Like they're every single song just has that really cool sound, and it's like punk rock.
Did he didn't carry any of these songs over to Sam Hain, right?
Not from here. He
Uh-huh.
did. I mean, he did. I think he brought a couple over, like Halloween, and there might have been a couple other ones. I don't know off the top of my head. I can't remember, but
Mhm.
from the catalog of Misfits music, I think a couple of them made their way to the Sam Hain. Because again, I think Sam Hain, geez, it's been so long. Was I think Eerie Von was the only new member. They just kind of rebranded it. I think Jerry Only and Doily were all, it was like Danzig, Jerry Only, Doily, and Eerie Von, or maybe it was uh, Danzig, Eerie Von, and one of the either Doily or Jerry Only, or maybe that was my. I'd have to look. We'll have to look that up and edit
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I think he took one or two songs over with him, and then that was kind of short lived, and then he became Danzig because I think Eerie Von stayed with him to go to
Yes.
Danzig, if I remember correct, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
he was phenomenal guitar player.
Yeah, very good.
Like what he, what I mean, I don't, if you ask me out of the three bands, Sam Hain was my least favorite. Uh, but when he transferred over to Sam Hain into Danzig, I mean, they just musicianship just was blown away.
Yeah, yeah. Misfits was punk rock. Sam Hain just kind of went into just pure horror and like Satan, Satan type influence. Even though not Satanist, but
Yeah.
it was all about like devils and Satan and evil and stuff. And yeah, the music wasn't as good. It was you could tell it was still kind of Misfits influence, but it wasn't as good. And then
Yeah.
the first couple Danzigs were really good. Some of the later ones got a little too, you know, I don't know, experimental.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, for me, and one of the top albums of the '90s is Danzig too. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
flawless album.
yep,
That's something that we'll have to do on another show.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's hop over here to "In the Doorway," the final track, and this one was really cool. I wasn't as familiar with this one, and I really dug it.
Yeah, yeah. This was like the quote hidden track that like never really saw any sort of release until the box set
Uh-huh.
and the Static Age album. You're talking before about like Jim Morrison and the Doors influence. Some people think that this is kind of a reference or heavy influence about like the Doors.
Yes, I when I listened to it, I said, "Oh, there's that Doors,"
Yep.
again.
Yeah, and then of course it's in the doorway, so I think that's you can
There,
make that argument.
there it is, "In the Doorway."
Light in the doorway, shining so bright. In the doorway, I can't you hear?
Yeah, that could like been a Danzig, or you know what I mean. This is great. So this could have
Yeah,
been such a shame this was shelved.
yeah.
You know. Let's give it a one little more listen because it is a good song.
Well, you let me in. Oh.
That's the album, all 17 tracks. How did it get released finally?
Like I said, they recorded it. They took 4 songs, and made the Bullet their first single. I think they did a couple more. They did like a remix and added Last Caress or something for the Beware or not Beware, I think EP.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of a re-release, and then the other songs just kind of made their way through. But the full album wasn't released until they did the box set, which, man, that when that came out, that like was like the holy grail of punk rock and Misfits for me. I have it. I still have it. I still like try to listen to it once in a while, even though you can find it all on online platforms.
Uh-huh.
When I was downstairs before I couldn't really get a good reception down there, but I had it. I was going to show you because my friend. So back in here in New Jersey, in Howell, New Jersey, on Route 9, there was a place called the Record Store.
Yes.
That was like the place. Everyone knew about it. It was like it wasn't even underground, but it was like the underground coolest, well-known record shop of all time. Um, it was owned by a guy named Jeff, and when I was a teenager, late teens, early 20s, I worked at a comic book store, and there was a guy, Ed Cook, who was the manager there, and we were really great friends. And I still, 30 years later, 30 plus years later, I still consider him a great friend. I saw him a couple weeks ago. We still, connect once in a while.
Mhm.
And he and Jeff became a couple. They got married, and he left the comic book store and then brought the comics to the record store. So it became, so as a couple made the store even cooler. And
Mhm.
I would go there. This was when I was still single, before I had family and kids. I would go there like at least once a week and just look at everything they had. They had used CDs, they had records, DVDs, like just toys, everything.
Mhm.
And he gave me the heads up. He's like, bro, he's like, do you want me to put this aside for you? It's coming out. And he showed me like in the little ordering thing, the Misfits box set. I'm like, oh my God, yes, you have to. I was
Yes.
like, absolutely. And I pestered him for like every day. I'm like, is it here yet? Is it here yet? Is it here yet? Is it here yet? And
Yep.
in 96, I was like 24, I guess,
Mhm.
or so. And yeah, when it finally came out, man, it just blew my mind. It had a little comic book. It had I think it had like a pick, it had like a pin, it had like some other swag, and then it had the compilation of everything they had ever made in like 3 or 4 different sets and some live stuff and everything else. And then it had the Static Age CD, and that was
Uh-huh.
time. That was the first time you could actually sit down and listen to that Static Age album from start to finish as it was meant to be. And I was like,
Nice.
man, I listened to that for weeks at a time, just over and over again. It was so cool. And yeah, and that was that. And again, this was all before online streaming platforms and
Uh-huh.
internet. I mean, the internet was around, but it was it wasn't something you could find.
Yeah.
So having it, and I don't know, probably like $50 or something. But I mean, in the '90s, that was significant for teens
Yeah.
and 20-year-old, for early 20-year-olds. But so it's not like something that everybody would just get, and it was also limited. So like it was also something that you couldn't just you couldn't just walk into Target and just swipe your credit
Yeah.
card and walk out the door with a like a $20 thing or whatever. So getting it was the first battle. Affording it was the second battle, and I was probably my only friend, probably to this day, that I know that has it,
Mhm.
like the actual box set, and having that back in '96, man, that was it was so cool. I immediately just like made a couple CDs. We had CD burners back then.
Yes.
Just made a CD so I could take one in the car, so I didn't have to take the real one and
Yep.
risk getting it damaged or stolen or anything like that.
I used to do that too. I didn't want to mess up my CDs
Yeah,
because you're right. I used to shop there all the time, especially that same time. And I remember like albums. Let's just say if they came out on a Tuesday, he
yeah,
had
yeah,
days, and I
yeah,
made sure I bought it from there because I got it the day before everybody else.
yep, yep, yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that was a great place. They eventually retired, and I still keep in touch with them.
Oh,
They're
that's
they're
great. Yeah.
probably one of my closest friends for like that long. You know.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time money. I loved they had the Led Zeppelin 4 cassette on the roof.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, love that place.
Yeah.
That and vintage vinyl, where the two
Yep.
New
Yeah.
Jersey
Yeah. Vintage
hats
vinyl. Yeah.
come.
That was where I used to get all my cassette tapes. That was even earlier to that. That was like in the '80s was vintage
Mhm.
vinyl, and whatever the store was in the Seaver Square Mall, and then
Yes.
yeah, and then in the '90s and early 2000s was all about the record store. They had
Oh,
that one. They had a smaller shop, and then when Ed and Jeff, when they got together and created a bigger business, they moved down. They moved south just like a half a mile to a bigger place, and
yes.
they couldn't take the giant tape off the roof because it had been there so long that there was like pulling it off was like just it was too damaged by the time they got it off. So it
Mhm.
never really made it back to the other spot.
Yeah, I remember when because I remember they were in one spot and then moved a couple. It was off Route 9 off.
Yep.
Yep. I yeah, I remember I was a big Love Hate fan, which really wasn't that popular. And I remember them having that album and they always had stuff that you couldn't find somewhere, you know?
No, everything. It was awesome.
Love it. So obviously we all missed the tour because we were very young.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about I know you saw the reunion show, right?
Yeah. Well, so I was looking for it last night, but I couldn't find it. Um, I have like me, I keep everything. I have my ticket stubs from all my concerts back in the day,
Mhm.
and I saw Danzig their very first tour. As soon as it had to have been '89, I want to say it was '89 or '90. I saw them up at I think it was L'Amour's in New York City,
Mm,
and
yeah.
I want to say I think White Zombie opened for them, and nobody knew who that was at the time. Um,
Nice.
like Beavis and Butthead had like little blurbs on them once in a while,
Yeah.
but like so I kind of knew who they were. They were really good. But yeah, I saw Danzig in his very first tour, and then because never got to see the original Misfits, which sucked. And then a couple years later, when the Misfits reunited under the Michael Graves era, I
Mhm.
saw them a bunch of times because they were playing like the Meadowlands in like the local area here in New
Yeah.
Jersey, probably New York too. So I saw them a bunch of times whenever they were around, and I really love that. I like the songs from there, the American Psycho, Dr. Chud and them guys. It was good. Um, and then yeah, when they came back for the official reunion, I was like, oh, this is so great. And me and Nicole went and saw them, and I was just so happy, to finally see them in their true form,
Mhm.
like so many years later. And that wasn't too long ago. That was, probably in the, I don't know, 20 in the 20 teens, I guess, maybe.
Was that the original band?
Yeah, they reunited. It was, yeah, the original
Original.
band. I think the drummer. I don't know who the drummer was. I think it was one of the Ramones might have been playing.
Uh-huh.
Uh, because I don't think. Yeah, again, when you talk about the original band, it's like, Danzig, Jerry Only, and Doily, and then the drummers. Kind of there was
Yeah.
a bunch of different drummers at different points. So I know one of the Ramones I think was playing during that tour. But original Misfits is definitely the three of them.
Did they play a lot of this album when you saw them?
They played, yes, they played just, yeah, they played all the old classics, all the good ones. They played songs off of here.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, they get the hybrid moments and the She and the Bullet, and yeah,
Yeah.
all the good ones. Everything you wanted to hear was there.
Oh man, I would have loved to see that. I never got to see them. I did actually with our mutual friend Ralph. Him and
Yeah,
I went to see Danzig in Philadelphia probably like 9 years ago, 8 years ago. And but it was all like, Danzig songs.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think I was a little disappointed because there was very little from Danzig too.
yeah,
And that was what I was praying, but he was promoting a new album, I think, at the time.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I saw him, he only had one album. He had just come out, so it was most of the songs on that album, but then a lot of Misfit songs too.
Oh, cool.
Because he also owned it back then, so he
Mhm.
could play it. And then before that was before the Michael Graves, when they got the rights back and started that up.
Mm. So, favorite song off the album for you?
I mean, I love them all, but Hybrid Moments is
Mhm.
definitely has to be like probably the favorite song, like because again that comes on, my body just feels it. It's just
I love it. Last Caress for me.
yeah, yeah, no, it's a good song.
It's the first one I've ever heard. I mean, not that I heard it from the Misfits, but it's the first Misfits song I ever heard, even though they were
Right.
sung by Metallica. So I've
Yeah,
always
yeah, yeah. No, I get
love
it.
it. All righty. Well, thank you very much. I am so glad that we did this.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do. We'll figure out something. Maybe do a Danzig or something even hardcore. I want to thank the listeners. I have to tell you guys, if you don't know the Misfits or you're not sure of this album, buy it. Listen to it. Watch it on YouTube. Whatever you need to do, you got to hear it. It's a really good album.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Definitely one of the best albums, and it just shows truly what the Misfits are about.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, everyone. Please like, subscribe, leave comments. If you want me to go over an album, especially if you want me to do it with Bro, just leave it in the comments and we'll look at it. All right. Thank you, my friend.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you.